Morning. Today's science lesson is coming to you from the Boardman River. We're going to be talking about hydroelectricity and how dams are actually wreaking havoc on natural ecosystems and why there's a big trend to remove them. So here's your classroom for today. I'll be stopping along the three places that they took out dams that were originally for electricity, and how there's people that are actually working hard to restore our natural ecosystem here in northern Michigan. All right, just to clarify, here is a map of the Boardman River, and we put in about right here where my cursor is. The Brown Bridge Dam, it was here. We then kept continuing downstream to the former Boardman Dam, the former Sabin Dam, and then we ended with the Union Street Dam. The Union Street Dam is the only one that is still there and in use, and the only reason that it is there is to keep this lake at a current level, and that one will continue being. All right, we are getting close to the dam. I'm on the river here, and if you notice behind me and to the sides, it's kind of like an open field, and you can see all these like big stumps and things. Those stumps used to be a forest before they put the dam in, and then this was a huge lake. And one second, the problem with the lake is obviously the dam collects sediments which can't go downstream, and then the rivers aren't as suitable for fish, so it's called river degeneration. And then what happens with this lake and so much open surface water is the river actually heats up, and that water going through the dam is warmer than normal, and the fish below the dam aren't able to survive, like the brook trout, which are very kind of a fragile native fish, aren't able to actually survive because of the warmer temperatures. So now they took out the dam. It's now a river like you see here, and you'll notice as we're paddling, that there's a bunch of trees and things growing. Okay, pretty soon in the next 10, 15, 20 years, this will be a forest again, and it will actually keep the river cooler, and those native fish species will be able to come back and thrive here, like the brook trout and things like that. So pretty soon up ahead, I'm going to show you where the first dam was, the Brown Bridge Dam, and where they removed it. And now you can come hike here and enjoy this ecological restoration. Okay, so when I was talking in the river just now, I was talking about these things. So when there's a dam, you have this impounded sediment that builds up right here. And then you have this vast pond or lake that builds by the dam. And the reason they dam it up is to really control the flow of the river going through the turbines to produce electricity. So really fish can't get past here, right? That sediment doesn't go downstream, and the riverbed degrades, as you can see here, which is not really suitable for fish habitat. Okay, so also what I said was when you have this big open surface water and not really fast flowing water, you have increased evaporation, which increases the temperature, and obviously algae and all those type of things. And then the water that does go through hurts the temperature of the river from then on out. Okay, so once the dam is removed, fish can swim freely, and you have these are sturgeon here. We have some trout. Spawning habitat becomes viable again. Nutrients get going down the stream, and then that temperature right here is back to natural. All right. All right, we're back on the stream of your virtual field trip on the Boardman River. We are at the actual spot of the Brown Bridge Dam right here. I'm going to show you in a second. It was built in 1921. It stopped actually producing power in 2005, and then it was removed in 2012. And then for a whole year, they worked on restoring the riverbanks, planting native trees, and getting the ecosystem back to where it used to be. Now, the positives of hydroelectricity is obviously it is a green energy. You're using the flow of the river to turn turbines and produce electricity, which is awesome. The problem is, back in the day when they did it, they would literally cut off the stream and change the ecosystem so much that it was harmful to the river and the fish in the river. What I want to show you right now is the actual dam and what's kind of left with it. It took them about a year to remove the infrastructure, the bricks, the mortar, all the concrete, the powerhouse plant, and obviously the power lines that went down here. So if you take a look over here, that right there is the old dam. Okay, so you have all of this earth pushed up, blocking the river, and then right over here, I don't know if you can see it, but there is a bridge going over the river over here, and you could hike that, but that's where the power plant actually was. Positives, right, that I want you to take away from this is that it is a clean energy, right? You do not have to burn fossil fuels to produce energy and electricity. The downside is it is pretty harmful when you block off a river. Here is kind of a cool breakdown of all the dams that we went through in this virtual field trip. So in the late 1800s, Queen City Light and Power first laid out the locations for 5 dams for hydropower production. 2 of the dams are still intact, though none are currently producing power. The first one that we went to, I'll scroll down, was the Brown Bridge Dam, which I showed you. I stopped. That was 18.5 miles from the bay. It was construction 1921, which we talked about. There's some varying information that I found online about it. Original use was hydropower. It was completely torn down in 2013. We then went through where the Sabin Dam was. It was rebuilt in 1930 for hydropower, which was taken out. And then this one was the closest one to Traverse City. It was made for hydropower generation, of course. It was made of earthen materials and concrete. And then the one that is still there, that people fish at right downtown, right by Union Street, which is quite why it's called the Union Street Dam. It's only 1.5 miles from the mouth of the river. And it was originally to supply power to a now defunct flour mill, right? Defunct means it's no longer there. Its current use is just to maintain the water level in Boardman Lake. And they have plans to completely redo that dam and do the state-of-the-art thing called the fish pass, which I'm going to bring up some information right now. Okay, we're on the river still. And I'm sitting at the only named rapids in the lower peninsula. All right, they're class 2, and they're right here in Traverse City. Pretty awesome stuff. I'm about to hit them on the paddleboard, and then we'll get back to the dams. Traverse City, the one and only Mark Golfo is about to go through. I just made it through. Here he goes. Oh yeah, we made it. All right guys, we've made it almost 19 miles down the river. We passed a couple other dams that have been taken out, but I wanted to stop at one of the original dams. It's called the Boardman Dam, and it was built originally in the 1890s, reconstructed in the 1930s, and then it was taken out in 2017, and the river was actually rerouted. It used to be the Keystone Pond that it dammed up, and it created power for Traverse City for years and years and years. They took it out, rerouted the river, and this is what it looks like now. If you can see it behind me, there's a bridge, right? And the river's flowing wild again. It's so cool. Last time I paddled here was like 2016, and it was really slow and murky, and it's so cool to see the river back to its natural flow state. So we're ending this journey in Traverse City. We have one more dam, and this is the... All right, we're downtown Traverse City. We've made it 27 miles from the Brown Bridge recreation area, and right next to me is the last dam of the day. It's one of 5 that was originally put in on the Boardman River. It's the one dam that they're going to keep. But so the website that I have up right here is the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, and it talks all about the fish pass that's in Traverse City. All right, so it talks here about how dams and barriers are often considered positive landscape features because they generate power, create recreational opportunities, block invasive species, right? And the flip side, right, it can reduce the ecological function by reducing species enrichment, fragmenting habitats, impairing animal movements, impounding water, increasing temperature, all those things we've been talking about. So what this is it's kind of an awesome state-of-the-art thing that it looks kind of like this right here. So there'll be an area for select fish to be able to go around the dam and get up into Boardman Lake and the actual Boardman River, while keeping other things like lamprey and hopefully other invasive species and different undesirable species out of the watershed in Boardman Lake and the rivers. So you can look at these. I'm going to ask you some questions, so you'll have to go to this website. This is a really cool video showing how people are going around it on kayaks, which I'll scroll through. This is kind of the conceptual, right? This is all computer, obviously, but this is what it's going to look like. It'll draw people down there to kayak, and you can see some people are paddling around, right? It controls the level of Boardman Lake still, and could be a really awesome part of our Traverse City community. So you can see what the dam will look like here, an area to go around, right? Still just like before, there's a kayak launch here. They can walk around here and then get back in the river. And here's the fish pass system. We're going to continue our virtual field trip of hydroelectricity to the one and only Elk Rapids Dam. This one is actually still running and producing power. In the 70s, there was actually a law put in place that keeps the depth of Elk Lake and Skigmog and the river obviously at a certain height to keep the watershed kind of the way it is for people that live on the lakes and such. This power plant still produces power for 200 to 600 to 800 homes. Consumers Energy buys as much of the power up as they can that's produced here. Remember, this is powered by gravitational potential energy. So the gravitational potential energy of the river goes through the turbines, which turns them, and then you produce power, right? This is a green energy, right? So it's not using any fossil fuels to produce energy. I would say the only downfall is back when Elk Rapids was first here, obviously they named Elk Rapids because there's a series of rapids coming from the Elk River down into Lake Michigan, or the bay over here, and they supposedly saw this elk antler in the middle of the river. That's what the myth or legend says, and they were in the rapids, so they called it Elk Rapids. But clean energy. Cool about this too is Consumers buys as much of the power, but Antrim County actually gets 10% of whatever's produced here as the funds. So it's helping the community, it's producing green energy, it keeps the river and lake the levels that they currently are, and it keeps our ecosystem the way that we're used to it here. So the Elk Rapids hydroelectric power. Another cool fact is it was shut down in the 50s. We had a power crisis in the 70s, so they refurbished it, opened it back up, and it's been running ever since. And in 2004, it was bought and has been run by the same company ever since then.